Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and the risks we take. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Thank you guys for getting me to 90,000 subscribers. Let's go for 100,000. I really do appreciate it when you guys subscribe to the channel. We don't do any paid promotions or affiliate links, nothing like that here. Keep that nonsense out of it. Let's just look at the charts. I'll give my unfiltered opinion, and you guys can take that and use it to assess how you are viewing the market. So, one of the things we've talked about in crypto for a long time is risk, okay? And when we talk about risk, we talk about it with the idea that, there's certainly times to move into the market, and it makes it, they're very clear at various points where we were over here and aggressively accumulating, over here and aggressively accumulating. And at this point, when we were back in these regions, it made a lot of sense. Okay, it made a lot of sense to accumulate, namely because, well, we were basically on our fair value, and our fair value line is just fit to quote unquote non-bubble data. Okay, these are our fair value times in Bitcoin. And so at this point, one of the things we talked about was the reason we focus on crypto so much is because, in my opinion, at these points, the risk-adjusted returns were among the most attractive I could personally find. The Sharpe ratio, the Sortino ratio, all phenomenal for Bitcoin. And the problem is that today we have so many new people coming into the space, and obviously we can't give these people a time machine to go back and purchase it when a lot of people did. So they're left wondering, well, what's going to happen? Well, the first thing we can obviously say is no one really knows what's going to happen in the short term here. Okay, but one of the things I would like to caution people about is if you simply look at this for what it's worth, just to take a step back. Okay? Now, I will be the first to say that Bitcoin could turn back around and go to 50K, 60K, something like that. It's certainly possible this could be just yet another correction on this massive move that we've seen over the last few months. Okay, this could simply just be yet another correction, and again, in a few days, people might just be saying, who bought the dip? Right? That's obviously a possibility. But when you take out the log scale and you just look at, say, where we've come over the last few months, it really does give you some perspective. So when we talk about the risks you take, if you're buying Bitcoin at these levels, if you are, your short-term ROI, it could work out well. Okay, it could work out well. In the same manner as when we were buying over here, we said, okay, well, it seems like this is a really good time to buy Bitcoin. And it was, right? We look back and it was. And the short-term ROI, if you were buying here, was not so great because of the March crash. However, we don't care about these little bunny hills that take place. We're not in it for small short-term gains. We're in it for these massive impulse moves like this. Okay? So by the time the new people in the space, by the time people that are not in the space say hear about it, they come in and they're aggressively buying up here, and it just sends it into this parabolic movement. And I've been in the space a long time. I've seen a ton of people, including myself, try to predict exactly how high a bubble will go. If you look across various asset classes, you'll see people constantly predicting the top, predicting the top, predicting the top. And when they're wrong, or when they say put in a value and then it goes higher, well, they just put in a new prediction. And of course, they'll eventually be somewhat right. But the point here is to say, it's just to say, if you are buying here, again, as we said a long time ago, and it still was true back then, whether you're buying at 42K, whether you're buying at 35K, or if you were buying here, okay, I stopped buying below this point. And naturally, because I stopped buying well below 20K, I get a lot of flack anytime the price of Bitcoin goes up. But as I said before, it's about your risk-adjusted returns. I'm very happy with my cost basis on Bitcoin being very low. I don't want to continue to chase a bubble. I just simply don't. So for me, at some point, it just becomes not worth the risk. And you might say, well, I have all this money. Where do I put it? Again, there's other places you can put money, and wait for things to calm down. Now, if you're wondering what I'm doing, of course, I'm coming at it from a biased perspective. I've been accumulating Bitcoin for a long time. Because I've been accumulating Bitcoin for a long time, I feel no need to be purchasing it at $34,000 when it was just simply at $10,000 a few months ago. Okay, so if you're buying Bitcoin here, you're more so doing it as a speculative short-term gamble. If you're say new to the space, because if you're new to the space, I doubt there are many new people coming in at 35K that are necessarily going to be okay with it if it comes back down. So they're hoping that in the short term it actually trends back up, and hopefully it does, right? Hopefully it does. But again, we want to be pragmatic about things and say, you know what? I mean, when you take a step back, it's not like a correction would be that surprising. Would it be that surprising? I don't think it would be that surprising. And as we said before, a lot of analysts would then say, well, it was obvious we were going to get a correction. So if you're buying it now, I know some of these videos can get repetitive, but I think each one reaches slightly different people. So if you're buying it now, I just need you to know there are a lot of risks involved with it. And if it goes up next week, I'm sure I'll get a lot of comments saying, haha, it continued to go. But it's fine, because there is a universe within the multiverse where it doesn't, and it comes back down. And if a lot of people get burned and then they were able to maybe stop FOMOing in, and it saves some of that, then I think it's worth being somewhat repetitive. If you go back and look at prior bubbles, it looks obvious in hindsight, right? It looks very obvious in hindsight what was going on. And I mean, this one was a much more massive bubble. And one of the things about bubbles is that it's hard to know where you are within a bubble, okay? Like, it's hard to know if we're at this point or if we're at, say, this point or this point or this point. We just don't know, right? We simply do not know where we are. Of course, time will elucidate the truth, but right now we simply just do not know if in fact this will bring us down for a long time, for months and months and months, or if all we're going to do is at the end of the day maybe we'll get this slight pullback, but then the bubble continues higher. Okay, and then another option, another idea too, if we switch this over to a log scale. Another idea is when we overlay our bull market support band, which has historically been our support, as we've said, in a bull market, several corrections down to it. If we do come back down to it, let me remove this. So if we do come back down to it, then maybe what will happen would be something like this, where it was a pretty explosive move up. Maybe we come back down, we test support, and then ultimately we trend much higher. Okay, this is obviously a possibility as well. Our main point here for making this video is to say, you know what, if you're coming in Bitcoin for the first time at 35K, at 40K, at 42K, Bitcoin will probably bail you out at some point, because as we said before, that is what Bitcoin does. Even the people that bought at 20K in 2017 who were buying it 100x up from the bottom earlier in 2015 or so, even those people got bailed out, but they had to wait 3 years. So even if you're buying it here, I don't think you'll have to wait 3 years to be bailed out, even if we do go into a correction. A lot of people, myself included, think that Bitcoin will trend to 6 figures over the next few years, but it won't necessarily do it in 2021. I would love it if it did it in 2021. Believe me, if Bitcoin goes to 100K in 2021, let's just be thrilled about it. But if you're like me and you don't necessarily want to just FOMO into a market because every other crypto YouTuber is telling you that it's just going to keep going up forever, remember, those people also existed in 2017, and there were not very many of them that were telling you. There are not very many people telling you at this point that it was the peak. In hindsight, of course, they'll say, oh yeah, that was the peak. But at the time, who remembers? There were so many people drawing these charts where it continued on up higher. Even over here at 6K, people were saying, okay, we're going to get a double peak like last cycle, where we have say one peak and then two peaks. And then over here, that's what they were saying as well. This was going to be our first peak, and then we were going to go up here and get a second peak. And instead, it capitulated down to $3,100, and it took a lot longer period of time. And if the idea is that simply you buy at 35K or 34K, whatever it is, if the idea is you buy there because you expect it to go up to 75K eventually or 100K eventually, that's fine. But one of the things to consider is that there is something as the time value of your money, right? The people that bought Bitcoin up here, you know, I mean, in order for them to see just an ROI of 1, which means they essentially got their money back, they had to wait 3 years. And really, even if they did buy at 19.5K and sold at 19.5K 3 years later, guess what? They lost money because of inflation. And if they had had that money here, just say in the market, like in equities or in mutual funds, that money would have done very well during those 3 years. So you would have lost out on the time value of that money over those 3 years. So our main point here is not to just be the bad news bears, right? Where I just come out and say, you know, I give people the obvious daily FUD or anything like that. I don't want to turn into that. One of the comments I saw on my YouTube channel recently, which I thought was pretty funny, was someone said, because my name's Ben, they said, or Benjamin, they said Benjamin Cowan, which is fine. It's funny how times can change, because not so long ago when Bitcoin was at like 6K and 7K, and I was saying that, you know, this is an investment of a lifetime, etc., I was being written off as a moon boy, which again, that's okay, right? It's okay. And then now when we try to urge caution to people, and we say, okay, well, we know Bitcoin has explosive potential and that it could easily trend up past 42K if it wanted to. This could also be one of those times where it just doesn't, and it comes back down for a while, and we test some of the lower valuations. So if in the future we are, you know, we're testing the bull market support band, if the risk levels are low, I'll be full on bull again. And you know, I like to consider myself a Bitcoin bull, but I like to keep a couple of panda bears or koala bears next to me just to keep myself in check, because it's the people that don't keep themselves in check, those people that don't manage the risk, and they just buy Bitcoin for the first time once it's already up 4x in 4 months. It's these people that stand to lose the most whenever the peak comes in. So I understand there's a lot of people in the space that are saying it's going to go to 300K by the end of 2021, and if it does, great, right? Great. It'll make a lot of people a lot of money. But again, it's the same type. That's the same type of deterministic thinking that made people lose a lot of money in 2017. So I would say to proceed with caution. If you want to buy Bitcoin now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It's not financial advice, but you do have to be aware of the short-term risks. And by the way, I'm sure people will mention it, I was also urging caution when it was at 20K. I was, because at that point I stopped buying myself, and I think that, you know, buying an asset when it's up, say from March, when it's up 400% in about 9 months or so, yes, you should urge caution. The point of this channel has always been, you do not chase pumps. You simply do not chase them. You get in when it makes sense to get in down here, and you leave the pumps for the pigs. Leave it for the pigs. Remember, bull markets can make you money, bear markets can make you money, but the pigs, the hogs, will get slaughtered. So you can let them chase it. You can let them chase it all you want, and some of them will make a lot of money. Some of them will lose a lot of money. But if you want a more rational approach to the crypto markets, then again, coming in at 35K for the first time into Bitcoin is simply, to some degree, you have a very high risk tolerance, or you simply just want to gamble on the markets. But again, you don't need crypto to do that anyways. So hopefully this cautionary tale is at least useful to some people. And again, I understand that it'll invoke some type of criticism for being short-term bearish on Bitcoin. And if it does go up, and let's say that it goes up to 50K, I'll make the same video. I'll make the same video and tell people, be cautious. Okay? Does it mean you can't make money coming in here? but you certainly are fighting against the people. You're fighting the there's going to be a lot of bears that were buying it down here, buying it down here. There's going to be a lot of them. Those are who you're fighting right now. Okay? And if there's enough new buyers in the space to overcome that sell pressure, we can continue up. If there's not, you could wake up one morning and again, this could just be the start, right? I mean, this could just be the start of a more substantial correction. So just keep everything in check, manage your risk. There will be plenty of times in the future where, we'll be looking at Bitcoin and we'll say, all right, seems like a decent time to get back in. For me, 35K is not one of those times. Maybe it is for you, and that's okay, right? As long as you have a plan and you're sticking to it, maybe buying Bitcoin at 35, 34K is okay. This early on, it's not for me. If we chop sideways for a long time, then maybe buying at this level would be okay for me. Or if we come down and then come back up and then do something like this, then maybe eventually, all right, yeah, maybe I'll buy it at 35K. But buying it when it's up 400, 500% in less than a year, no thank you. And in fact, from the bottom of the wick, which we were covering live, at least on the premium list, we were up, from the current price, we're up 800%. In fact, the risk level, or at the top, we went up 1,000%, which is 11x. The risk level, if you follow the risk level on the channel, we hardly ever get to this, but the risk at this point was 0.12. 0.12. That might not mean everything, or that might not mean anything to a lot of you, but at the time, that was huge, and that meant, for me, it meant buy, like just buy Bitcoin, right? That's what it meant. Doesn't mean that here, okay? It just simply does not mean that here. So, thank you for listening to yet another cautionary tale. If we trend higher, great, so be it. It means that we'll essentially be getting a lot more new money coming into the space. But if you think that a 20 to a 25-30% correction is as bad as it's ever going to get, I would say think again. If you guys like the content, subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go for 100,000 subscribers, and let's watch Bitcoin make this journey as we continue on into this decade. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.